So it was too hard of a workout, and I was swimming in lactic acid, and it was very painful. It was like the type where you're keeled over on the track, almost barfing. Hi there, Coach Sage of VO2 Max Productions here with another training talk. In this series, back to the basics. We're going to do short, concise training talks on a variety of topics, starting with this one, the dynamics of doing a workout like 8 times 400 meters. So something maybe you do on a track, traditional type of workout. What does it mean? Well, we're doing eight repetitions, so to speak, or eight intervals of a 400 meter distance, right? One lap around a standard outdoor track. Maybe if it's an old US track, it's 440 yards, but I digress. Anyway, that workout, there's a lot of variables there, a lot of things you could change within the workout that could trigger a different system in your body, and it might change over the course of your training cycle. So over the weeks and months, as your fitness changes, these things change, and these things change the energy system dynamic of the workout. And so we're going to get into that in this talk. First of all, we're going to look at the speed that we run these at. So, coach writes 8 times 400 meters. It's on a training sheet. Well, that's all great, but if we don't know what speed we're running in them at, that changes it a lot, right? Are we running it at all out, fastest possible average? Maybe that's like 800 meter race pace, or it's definitely faster than your 1500 meter or mile race pace. All out, fastest possible average could be a very painful workout. It might be hard to pace as well, because you might start sprinting on the first 400 meters, and then after a couple you realize that you're starting to slow down your average, right? And so you have to pace it. But what we could also say, maybe you're doing these 400 meter repeats at your 5K race pace, your current 5K race pace, and you're like, Coach Sage, that's way too easy. Like a 5K is actually 12 and a half 400 meters. 12 and a half laps, right? So 5K pace seems nice and easy. Well, that would be too easy, right? And generally with a workout like this, shorter intervals, 400 meters, especially for a long distance runner, for a sprinter this would be too long of a workout, of course. The pace usually is faster than 5K pace, but not necessarily. And it's not necessarily a harder workout if the pace is slightly slower or slightly faster, right? Between that mile, 1500 meter race pace and that 5K race pace. So the first variable there is the speed. What are we running them at? Am I doing 8 times 400 meters at 65 seconds per lap? 105, right? When I was in high school training too hard, I think my best possible average for this workout was 63, 64 seconds. And it hurt me. It was faster than my mile race pace. I barely cracked 430 in the mile, 409 in the 1500 in high school. So it was too hard of a workout, and I was swimming in lactic acid, and it was very painful. It was like the type where you're keeled over on the track, almost barfing. But anyway, I digress. The second variable, number 2 here, the second variable, of course, which makes or breaks the workout, what is the rest? What is the rest interval between these hard 400 meter efforts, and what are we doing during that rest? Are we keeled over, standing there? Are we doing a brisk walk? Are we jogging between? Do we have to jog 200 meters between each 400 meter? And how long is this? Do we have a 1-minute rest? Do we have a 2-minute rest? Maybe we have a 4-minute rest, right? Suddenly, that workout of doing them super fast becomes quite a bit easier if you have a 4-minute rest in between, or full recovery almost, right? That being said, if you develop a lot of lactic acid, it's going to be really hard. Anyway, but if the rest is only 30 seconds and you're doing these 400 meters at 5K pace, that's almost like doing a continuous 2-mile or 3,200 meters worth of work at VO2 max, at your 5K pace, basically. So you might start breathing really hard if you have a very short rest, right? So these variables really change the dynamic of the workout. Are we going more for this pure speed stimulus where we're running at a really fast pace, a really high velocity, getting, almost sprinting, and then we get a really long rest of minutes and minutes between each 400 meter repeat? Or are we doing these more at our 5K pace, but we have a really short rest, less than 1 minute, where we can't even catch our breath? Our heart rate starts to go down, but we're still kind of breathing hard. And so it's going faster, but the workout takes less time, but it's a different stimulus. It's more of an aerobic stimulus versus if you were doing it really hard sprints, it would be what we call more of an anaerobic type of stimulus. It could be to clear lactate. It could be to get your leg muscles really firing, those fast twitch muscle fibers going at a sprint pace. So a little side example off of that, for marathon trainers and longer distance runners, I think it was Ron Clark or one of the great marathon, maybe Deke, Rob De Castella, used to do these 400-meter repeat workouts where he'd run pretty fast for 400 meters. And before, he wouldn't even stop though. He'd go right into what he called a 200-meter float. So he's doing a continuous 5K on the track, I think he did. But it was alternating 400 meters very fast, faster than 5K pace, while going into the next lap at a 200-meter where he's running at a steady, faster than an easy pace. It's not even a recovery jog. It's like he's actually moving. I think he was doing like 6-minute mile pace still on his recovery for 200 meters before starting another fast 400 meters. So he's alternating around the track every 200 meters, his start and end point, of course, because of that 200-meter stagger, that 200-meter float in between. But that's a real good example of a marathon runner doing speed work that could get very hard, very anaerobic. You're burning with lactic acid feeling and your heart rate spiking up over 90-95%. So it's a good speed stimulus and a good power type of stimulus. And that's why we would do these types of interval workouts. And a final note, just an extension on this example of 8 times 400 meters. It's not necessarily something we'd have all athletes do. It's something I did in high school quite a bit. In college, that evolved into doing 10 or 12 or even 20, sometimes even 30 times 400 meters. That was too much though. And usually it would be with like a minute rest, minute 15, maybe a minute and a half rest, or even a 45-second rest. And usually it would be just slightly faster than 5K pace because I wasn't a miler. I wasn't a 3K and below runner. I didn't need too much anaerobic stuff. The 800 guys would actually do 4 times 400 meters at fastest possible average with like a 4-minute rest. That was like a bread and butter 800-meter mid-distance type of workout. So that's kind of the variations. Whereas if you're a 10K person, 5K guy, you're doing 25 laps in a 10K. So you get used to doing 20 times 400, but the rest is very short and you're running it more at what's slightly faster than we call velocity at VO2 max. And that's getting real technical. But maybe you're a mountain ultra trail runner and you don't have access to a track and you actually want to do vertical gain. So it would be better to do these as hill repeats. So maybe you're doing 8 times 1 minute uphill. And then your recovery is walking back down the hill. Now you don't get the downhill pounding stimulus. You could also rest at the top and then run downhill pretty fast, more of an injury risk. But the idea is building power and running hard, spiking the heart rate, and getting a lot of those same benefits. Because your heart and lungs don't know what you're doing. If you're going hard for 1 minute, you're going hard for 1 minute, right? And the way your muscle fibers fire and activate could be different. The way you build up muscle strength and your stride power could be different, right? Depending on the slope of the hill and if you're doing it on a flat track. Likewise, you could also do this on a flat road or any path that you're running on as what we call a fartlek. Now, it's not traditional fartlek in terms of just random speed play, ending and surging between trees and landscape obstacles and stuff like that. It could be timed interval type of fartlek where you're timing yourself on a wristwatch. And you could say, I'm going to go for a minute at a fast pace, and you're just kind of feeling it out. You're running for a minute fast, and then immediately after that, you keep jogging for a minute at an easier pace to let your breathing catch up and your heart rate to go down. So that would be like a fartlek type of workout, timed interval, I guess, of 8 times 1 minute on, 1 minute off, right? So it's a cycle of 1 minute surges. Maybe it's 5K pace, maybe it's a little faster. And then you're floating the recovery, or you're keeping moving on the recovery. You could walk it, I guess, as well. Starting off for beginners, that's usually better. It's hard to catch your breath right away after these hard efforts, but it depends exactly on how hard you go and how hard you go on the recovery as well, and what your relative heart rate might hit. So that's my talk on this variations. Back to the basics, new training playlist on here on this channel, VO2 Max Productions. cover more topics that you guys want to hear about especially. So comment below and like, thumbs up, vote other comments or other topics that you would like to hear about in this playlist section, because I want to cover them. Back to the basics. Thanks so much for everyone for all your support on here. Thanks to Patreon supporters for really making this channel possible. Shout out to title sponsor Hoka One One, keeping the dream alive, any service, any distance. You know me, Coach Andy and I sell training plans at Higher Running. Follow us on social media. Thanks so much. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.